Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? My name is the Nanu, and I'm the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. And with this video here, we're going to be talking about Venom. Seen the movie last night, and saw it after work, and I didn't want to do the video right then, because I have a lot of things to say about it. I had to create like a little page of notes for how much we're going to be talking about this movie, and I just didn't want to do it off the top of my head because I wanted to be concise with my points and everything. And this is going to be a mostly negative review, so if you're somebody who came to this video to hear a good thing about the Venom movie, I would advise checking out somebody else's video, because that's not going to be me. I'm an old school Spider-Man fan. Been reading Spider-Man comic books since Venom first came out in the comic books, so that's definitely not going to be me. So we're going to be saying a lot of shit about this shitty movie. But right out the gate, just wanted to explain my, I guess if you want to call them, hopes for this movie. Like I said before, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man comic books. That's what got me into reading comic books, as a matter of fact. Huge fan of Venom and how he was portrayed in the comic books. The novels that they made from back in the day, things like that, right? So when I knew that Sony wanted to make this movie, my first thought, I even made a video talking about it earlier this year, I was like, you know what, that's not going to work. If they could somehow create his origin without Spider-Man, maybe, but then again, with Venom being what he is, who he is, you can't do that, because Spider-Man's whole origin, or not Spider-Man's origin, Venom's origin is wrapped up in Spider-Man's character. You know, it's heavily influenced by him and the other villains that he fights. So you can't just take that away from Venom and then have it be Venom. Like, that's not how it works. You know, I mean, regardless of whatever bullshit they say in the movie, that's not who the character is. And a lot of that didn't work for this movie either. I'll touch on a bunch of points later on about nitpicking and things like that, but just functionally or functional things in this movie just don't work. Story, characters, basic storytelling elements like character arcs, plot holes, the 3-act story structure. There's a lot that this movie just doesn't have, honestly. They try to make a Venom movie, try to do similar beats from the comic books with how Venom got there, things like that. Well, certain aspects of it. It kind of heavily gets influenced by the cartoon more than anything of Spider-Man. With it coming down from space on the space shuttle and everything like that. But nothing about this movie, at least to me, maybe other people, I swear to God, this movie may be better if, let's say, if I was somebody who didn't know nothing about Venom, I'm just going to the movies. At least you can look at it and be like, you know what, this movie was a bad movie, but at least I had fun. But me, the whole time in the theaters when I was watching it, I kind of had this, not necessarily like an angry look, but kind of like not a look of not enjoying myself. It's like I'm just sitting there. I think I chuckled at one of the jokes that was in the movie. One, and that was when Venom called Eddie a pussy. Outside of that, it was just like, I want to like something in this movie, I really do. And so far, the only thing that I can actually say that I like about this movie was they got Venom's size and his bulk right. And the way that they did the whole, how the costume transforms on him and things like that. I like that. That's the only thing I like in the movie. And everything else was just, it was just shit. And that's what pisses me off, because it's like, Venom is a character I love. Like, I love that character, you know, for years. Still do, even with all of the latest bullshit that they always trying to interject in comic books. Even with all the origin changes about Deadpool bonding to him first and things like that, how they retcon that in. A lot of the newer stuff with the symbiote god and all that kind of sort of stuff. It's a lot of that. It's like I like the character enough to be like, well, you know what? I just don't fuck with that, but I still like what they're doing with it. With this here, I can't say that, YouTube. I mean, I can't. I mean, the movie was ass. Like the characters were shitty. The story was shit. It is inconsistent. Doesn't have a whole lot of plot to it. You know, it's characters can change their viewpoints and like do a 180 with no kind of explanation or lead up with how things are going. I mean, the writing was just fucking bad too. Like, I feel like this movie was written by like a 13-year-old. Like, I would have never thought, let me go into this movie and have Venom being a buddy comedy movie, because that's what this shit is. This isn't like how the trailer makes it like, I knew I wasn't gonna like the movie based on the trailer, but at least from the trailer it looks like it's okay. Maybe it's trying to take itself a little bit serious, you know. Looks like it's gonna be a menacing thriller type movie, and then you go watch the movie and it's like, no, it's a straight up comedy. Like at some points I thought it was like, is this trying to be like a satire of Venom or a parody of? That's how comedic it can get at certain points, right? And it's not as bad as like the Predator movie or the last Predator movie that came out, was it, a few weeks ago, last month, something like that. But it's just everything about this movie was bad. You know, to me anyway. I mean, I've listened to people online seem to be split about this movie. Critics hate it, but the average movie-going person, you either like it or you hate it. It's like this movie has like a good 60-40 split, with the 60 part being negative. But let me jump into some things here. Story, like I said, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and this video is gonna have spoilers before I jump into things. So, because I don't feel like this video really needs two different videos, because we're gonna go in on this. But story-wise, right? The main story of the movie, the main overall plot is the aliens come down to Earth on a space shuttle. The Elon Musk Indian guy, he wants to merge human beings with symbiotes to create a new kind of life form so he can take humanity into space. Why he wants to do that, we will never know, because the movie has yet to explain it. Touch on more of that later. Outside of that, I mean, it's like the plot is basically that happens. Eddie Brock finds out that this guy's doing this. Eddie Brock breaks into the guy's facility, gets the costume, comes out, and him and Venom have to go take down this guy because he's wants to shoot this rocket into space and bring more aliens back, so they're trying to stop him from shooting this rocket and things like that. Without, telling the movie beat for beat, that's essentially what happens. This movie is a chase movie. His forces chase Eddie Brock and Venom, like, I can't even say half the movie, but let's say like most of the movie. This movie only has like 3 scenes, and that's what it kind of feels like. I'll touch more into it later, but this movie has the chase sequence from the trailer, the end fight scene between Venom and Riot at the end, and the one scene in the market, the turd in the wind scene, which is that's like the very last scene of the movie. It seems like everything else was shot around those 3 scenes. Like, they kind of went into it like, okay, we want to do this, and it's like, then it seems like they shot everything else around that. But the overall story, like when you're watching the movie, it has a weak beginning, it has a generic middle, and then a shit end. At the end of the day, like the weak beginning, for like the first 50 minutes of this movie, is trying to establish Eddie Brock, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. They mention him being, he's like the best investigative reporter, this, that, or the other, but he was ran out of New York, and that's why he's in San Francisco. First of all, that didn't gel with me, because if you're watching him in the movie, he's not an investigative reporter. It's like he's some kind of an interviewer, blogger, what have you, And if you ever look at somebody who is good at, let's say, journalism or anybody in real life, if they're assertive, they're forthright, they're assertive, they're in your face, they have an alpha male type personality 9 times out of 10 without being aggressive, but they assert their ground, as it were, right? You look at Eddie Brock in this movie, it's like he's a beta male. He talks small, he's meek, he fumbles over his words and things like that. It's like he's the complete opposite of what a good journalist or an investigator would be. That's just how I see it. So to me, when it's like they want you to believe this, I'm like, no, that's not the character. And it's like, I know it's not, a lot of people saying Tom Hardy and, whatever. I don't think it's him. I don't know if the director wasn't on board with what he wanted to do or what they wanted to do, or they meaning, Sony, the studio. But something was definitely off with a lot of these, action scenes. Well, not action scenes, but with the characters. And what kind of characters, that they were meant to play. But it's just like, I didn't believe that at all. The Elon Musk guy, the Indian guy, from what I'm hearing online, he's better in other things than in this. This is my first time seeing him, so I can't compare. But his character was shit. I mean, shit. Like, it's his character was a blank board, just nothing the whole movie. Give me my symbiote. Bring me this. Bring me that. Like, it wasn't even like. In movies, you always see like the entitled rich kid who thinks other people should listen to him because he's rich. In this, it's like it's not even that. It's just that it's because then he would have some type of personality. It's like this guy has no personality. He's just. I can only remember him in 4 scenes in the movie. Now that I'm thinking about it, he's only in like the beginning when they're testing this. When they're testing the alien costume. Then he's in one more scene. And then, like, towards the end, they show him when he gets riot and, all of that stuff. So it's like, but his acting is just, it was just nothing. It was just like, I mean, to say one note would be generous. It's like he always had the same exact face, no kind of characterization, just talking, like, how I'm trying to put my thoughts to words here, and I'm just totally failing. Like, I should have broke out the vodka before I made this commentary, because it's like I said, Elon Musk guy. It was the dialogue in the whole movie was bad. So a lot of his dialogue was just bring me what I want because I want it. He wasn't believable as far as like being the owner of this company. He does certain things in the movie where when you look back on him, you'd be like, why would the people listen to him? It's like, but they do. It's like this movie feels like a shitty video game where you just have to move the plot. So stuff has to happen for no reason. That's what it feels like. Eddie Brock's girlfriend, she was in the movie just to have, I think, Venom at one point, because they do that at one point in the movie. That's cool and all, but that's never been a big thing in the comic books, and it wasn't a big thing here. It was just, I guess Venom needed her to get to get back to Eddie Brock at some point. But again, her character didn't have to be in there. She had no major role in this movie. Her or her new boyfriend, who's also in the movie. Outside of that, I mean, the dialogue was bad for everybody. It wasn't like one person got it more worse than the other. All the characters go through weird story beat changes that don't make sense. Like, there's one scene with his ex-wife where Eddie Brock is doing the one scene where he fights the SWAT guys in the trailers and stuff. Right after that scene, he's about to eat somebody's head off, and his wife, or the ex-wife, sees him. And, well, not ex-wife, ex-fiance, I think, technically. It was ex-wife in the comic book, so that's why I keep calling her that. But she sees him, and he transforms back or whatever, and she freaks out, and it's like, oh, let's go to the hospital. And it's like, that's not if somebody looked to see somebody, regardless of who it was, and you seen was a big ass fucking alien, you're gonna be running away scared. You're not just gonna be like, oh, well, we need to go to the hospital. You need to get checked out. Like, fucking no. You seen what he is. It ain't like he hit it like you didn't see it. Like, no, She saw him in Venom mode standing like 10 feet tall about to bite this dude's head off. And then watch him transform back. And it's just like, you're just gonna go to the hospital? Like, fuck no. You know, didn't make a whole lot of sense. And she drove him there with him talking to Venom in the backseat. Didn't make no fucking sense. But, that's why I think that sometimes it's like, are they trying to make this movie like a parody? Like, do they know it's a shitty movie, and are they, you know, leaning into the shittiness? But like, it's like it doesn't go that far, but it's like it leaves you guessing. Like, are they trying to do that, or did they not mean to do that? But and that's where I think the problem is, because it makes the movie tonally different. You know, somebody like myself who would want like a more serious, menacing movie. Touch on more towards the end when we wrap things up. But and then you got everybody else who just, I guess, just wanted to watch a movie about Venom, or either didn't know what this movie was about. And it's just, this movie's all over the place. You know, it really is. It's not like a bad movie. Like, when I mean bad, like bad to me on my scale is like those shitty C-rate or B-rate movies where it's just like they just didn't have no budget for everything and everything is like shit. But if you have something about the movie is good, like, to me, story is everything, because that's the world you're telling, right? That's the story you're telling, and with the movie. So if you have a good story, I can overlook everything else. But this movie has like a shit story. Like, the story in itself doesn't make any sense from beginning to end. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Hell, even, like I said, Eddie Brock, his whole motivation for breaking into the company didn't make sense. One of the scientists came and was like, oh, you need to do this. I'm trying to expose my boss. But this is like 6 months after he, got fired from his job, and he's not a reporter no more. So why would he break in there since he's not a reporter? And even then, it's like he fumbles his way in there, walks into like this, their secret lab or whatever, starts breaking glass doors because one of the infected people is, or one of the infected homeless people is like somebody you saw him interact with at the beginning of the movie. So it's like he's a nice guy, like he was helping her out and stuff like that, and talking with her and stuff. So when he sees her, he busts her out, and Venom comes out of her and goes into him. And it's just like he doesn't think with nothing in the movie, or doesn't think about anything in the movie about his actions and what he's doing and what are the consequences are going to be for that. And I can even say the same thing about Venom. Venom as a character in this, he is the comedy relief. Essentially, first of all, it takes like, they try to set up Eddie Brock for, feels like 45 minutes to an hour, and then when Venom finally does show up and he starts talking to him, that's when the movie kind of jumps into this buddy comedy type scene for the middle. And that's why I said it had a weak middle. The middle wasn't bad. Like I said, the buddy comedy stuff isn't for me. I can understand Venom having dark humor because the comic books had hints of that, don't get me wrong. The jokes is not what I'm mad about. It's the way the characters were interacting with each other. It was just, maybe it was the dialogue, because like I said, the dialogue all throughout this movie was ass. It was, and not the good kind of ass you want. It's the shitty, the shitty dialogue of it. Like I said, it feels like it was written by a kid. I don't know who written this screenplay, but they didn't know what they was doing, dialogue wise. There are certain scenes in here where, like, when they're doing that whole apartment scene, the apartment scene before Eddie gets jumped by those guys in the trailer, and when they come in there, they pull their guns on him, and he puts his arms up, and Venom's like, "What are you doing? You're making us out to, like, you're making us look bad." And he put his arms down. He was like, "No, I'm not." Raise them back up. "Yes, you are." Raise them back down. "No, I'm not." Raise them back up. And I was like, am I watching a fucking retarded cartoon? And it's like, they had a few scenes like that where it's just like, the dynamic, the comedy between Eddie Brock and Venom. It's like, for me, that just didn't work, because it's like, I'm a grown-ass man. It's like, I didn't pay his money to see a fucking comedy movie. But it would have been better if, let's say, if Venom, like, had a joke once in a while. I'm not saying that the jokes completely are bad. That's not what I'm trying to say. But it's like, if they had, like, a joke every once in a while, but he was still, let's say, like, a menacing character when he was Venom, then I could be like, okay, you know, it is what it is. It's just like the comic book at that point, you know. But it wasn't. It was almost like Venom was the comedy relief, and Eddie Brock was the one laughing at his jokes, or you know, he was the person he could bounce off of. That's what it felt like. And to me, it just didn't work. It just and then on top of that, Venom's motivations for doing what he doesn't make sense. I think halfway in the movie, they talk about the scene where he comes out of his arm and he's talking to him in the trailer, talking about we can do whatever we want. That scene, Venom is explaining to Eddie like, oh yeah, we came here to invade Earth, and you know, we're gonna kill everybody on here on this planet and eat them and stuff like that. And then like at the end of the movie, he's like, oh, you know, this city don't look too bad, because you know, when they're on top of like this building, he's like, oh, this city don't look, you know, that bad from up here. And it's like at the end of the movie, he's like, oh, now I don't want to destroy everything. Why? Because I like you. We're both losers. I'm a loser on my planet and you're a loser here, so I like you as a person. Like, what? It just came out of nowhere. Like, it was no kind of build up to that change. It was just like, oh, why do you want to stop it? Oh, because, you know, we want to be good. Like, that's what it felt like. It felt like it was complete shit. And it's just certain things about Venom didn't make sense. Like at the beginning of the movie, they explicitly say that if the symbiote bonds with somebody, and let's say if it, for whatever reason, the alien and the host aren't compatible, then both of them die. You know, they explicitly say that. But halfway in the movie, Venom jumps off of Eddie Brock, goes to his wife, goes to a chihuahua, goes to like the original person who had it, and then went back to Eddie Brock. And I'm like, well, how come none of those things died when it jumped to him? You know, it didn't make a whole lot of sense there. Breaking its own continuity that it's trying to set up. And then you had Riot jump like 2 or 3 different people to get from China to San Francisco in the span of 6 months. So it's like, that didn't make a whole lot of sense either. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's bad. Like I said, it's bad. What I did like about Venom though, I loved how they made the costume look. Loved how they made it move. Loved that that liquidy tight look to it whenever it moved. Like when it was in the containers in the trailer, and it was in the little containers and moved. I loved how they, you know, made the dynamics of that look. Also liked it whenever they showed Venom flowing off of Eddie Brock and how it made it look like liquid and stuff like that. They even made Riot do the same thing but a little bit different. They made it have a different look. I like that a lot. Him having the white veins instead of the, you know, the big spider thing. I think the white veins are stupid, but when you're there watching the movie, it's like you don't, you know, I was watching it in 3D, so I barely even noticed them, to be honest. But it does kind of give the suit more design than just straight black, so it's understandable with that. I mean, hey, they can't use the spider, they can't use it, but I think they did okay as far as look wise with, you know, with Venom wise. I think they did good with that. I think that the voice of Venom was done extremely well. I do like that. Again, the inner monologue between Venom and Eddie, I think it was the comedy is what didn't work. I thought the inner monologue could have been done a little bit better. Maybe if it had better dialogue. I wish it would have had better things to work with, because what they did, it was kind of fumbly. It felt kind of fumbly to me. Outside of that, the whole threat of the movie, you know, Carlton Drake sending a rocket up into space to get more aliens, I felt it was shitty. just like everything else in the movie. It had no impact. It wasn't believable. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, because if we're humans with certain technology, where are we getting these aliens from when we send a rocket into space? They never mention that. They just say that, oh, a comet. They said they got it from a comet, but then Riot and Carlton Drake are like, oh, we can send another rocket up there to bring down millions of aliens down to Earth. How? They got it from a comet, not a planet. So rockets don't go that far outside of our, you know, outside of the first couple planets in our solar system that we can travel to over long distances of time. So where are you getting these aliens from? You know, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If they'd have had a line in the beginning saying that, oh yeah, we developed this new kind of technology that lets us do low-level warp drive to go to like the next solar system over, and they found this planet and came back. That's different. But they didn't explain none of that. So they just sent a rocket up, found a comet somewhere, and then brought back 3 aliens. You know, not a whole planet full of aliens or nothing like that. So, like I said again, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They didn't really explain anything about the symbiotes, or like what made them different, how they come from, or how they do what they do. You know, I wish they'd have had a reason in there, because Eddie Brock even mentions at one time, like when they saw Riot, Eddie Brock was like, what are our chances of beating him? And Venom told him, 0%. And then he was like, well, why is it 0? And Venom was like, well, think of him like a team leader, you know, and he could do like the shape shifting. He could do all the carnage stuff with his symbiote, make blades, axes, stabbing weapons, that kind of sort of thing. You know, he was going all, you know, Robert Patrick on him. And why couldn't Venom do that? I know why he can't do it in the comic books. You know, it you know, because it just wasn't one of the innate abilities that his symbiote can do. But in the movie, if they're the same organism, and they have to have a movie reason why one can do it and the other one can't do it. You know, it just, they didn't explain that. So if you're an audience moviegoer, and you're watching the movie, you're looking at one and be like, well, why can't he do the same thing if they're both the same organism? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense there. And it's such an easy fix where you could be like, okay, well, if he bonds to, let's say, this one person, then giving their unique physiology, then they could make blades. And let's say with Eddie Brock, let's say, well, the reason you can, you know, since Venom bonded with Eddie, then maybe there's something about him where he can make, like Venom did a lot of tentacle stuff in the comics. You know, maybe, let's say, Riot can't do tentacles, but Venom can do tentacles, and that was Eddie's thing. You know, so it's just, they should have had some kind of unique identifier to explain why one can do things and the other one can't. Or say that, oh, he's a lot older than I am, he has more experience, that's why he's able to do those things. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, since in the comic books they all kind of came from Venom, but, you know, it is what it is. Outside of that, the people who worked for Carlton Drake's company were just pawns. Like, generic pawns, too. Like, they just did anything that the guy said for no reason. Like, the guy was like, well, we can't do this. Like, this is breaking, you know, like, we can't experiment on people. Just do it because I say so. Okay. Like, what? You know, like they had one scene, like, the main scientist lady. He kind of sort of threatened her. I get that, don't get me wrong. But then, like, at the end of the movie, he's like, launched a rocket. He was like, but we haven't gone through the pre-checks yet. We haven't tested out nothing. Oh, do it because I say so. Well, sir, the flight team isn't prepped yet. Who's going to fly it? I'll fly it. But you can't fly it by yourself. You know, you're like, you can't fly it alone. He was like, I'm not going to be alone. And so it's like you just, who does that? Who, like, who's just going to completely listen to their boss? Without no rhyme, no reason, no explanation, knowing that they're breaking the law or breaking, you know, some kind of rule or something that's established. Nobody. It's like this. That's why I said the dialogue. That's what I said, and I know I said it several times before. It's just, this movie feels like it was written by a 13-year-old. It's like things just happen, and people just go along with it. Why? Because who knows? Who knows? Because the movie's never gonna tell you. Like, it would have been so much better. And well, first of all, let me explain if I was Sony, because I'll touch on how I would have made the movie, and then I'll touch on how they could have made this movie better, at least in my eyes. But if I was Sony making this movie, let's say, you know, Venom was coming out, we were gonna make it, no ifs, ands, or buts. If it was me, number one, I wouldn't do Eddie Brock, at least not yet. And I'll touch on this in a sec. But Venom as a character, he is so, I guess the word I would use would be entrapped or enwrapped in Spider-Man's character that it's hard to separate him from that. Hell, I mean, if you separate him, technically the only power Venom should have should be shapeshifting. If you want to be technical. No super strength, no speed, no agility, none of that bullshit, because all that came from Spider-Man. So, you can't really separate the two. Unless you kind of write his character a completely different way. And in this movie, they tried to do that, but they failed horribly at doing that. If it were me, like I said, if I was Sony making this movie, I wouldn't do Venom right away. I wouldn't do Eddie Brock Venom right away. I would jump into Flash Thompson. Because they had a whole run in the comic books where Flash Thompson, the guy who used to bully Peter Parker when he was in high school, got the alien costume and became Venom. And he became like a Black Ops mercenary type character that worked for the government. And he would go tackle like supervillain threats or certain threats that they couldn't send soldiers to deal with, regular people to deal with. So I would start with that. And then let's say you can have your origin movie. You can show Flash Thompson getting his legs blown off in Iraq during their Iraq war. You can kind of explain, have a couple flashback scenes of showing him pushing somebody in high school or something to get you to know, like, okay, this dude was a bully. Show all of that in like a flashback, and then jump him into him being, in his Lieutenant Dan phase of, like a second away from like blowing his brains out. And then you can, jump, that could be where your movie kicks off, and having the military come to him and be like, look, you're a perfect candidate for this new program we got going on. We know we can make you the next super soldier, whatever you want to call it, right? And then you can have him get the Venom costume and have the movie be about, let's say, and then you can even do comedy if you want, lightly, of course, because keep it a serious movie. But do it like, have jokes here and there to break up the, the tension a little bit. It doesn't have to be 24. I don't want it to be as serious as that. I don't want Venom to be screaming, "Where's the bomb?" Over and over again. But, do like a light, serious movie, Flash Thompson as Venom. And then you could, let's say, have somebody in the movie, let's say Flash Thompson, be like, "Look, where did you get this alien from?" And then you can have just somebody say, "Oh man, we got it after that big superhero mess in New York." And that's it. You just leave it alone. Don't mention Eddie Brock. Don't mention where they got Venom. Don't mention Spider-Man, because you don't have none of that yet. You know what I'm saying? So then, let's say if this movie sells, then you make Venom 2, Venom 3, and then you can bring in, you can do a prequel movie with once they figure out where they're going to take Spider-Man, whether they're going to either keep him in the MCU or take him out of the MCU, when their contract goes up, whatever they decide to do, they'll be ready to do at that point, if not already done it. So if they take Spider-Man out of the MCU, then you can be like, "Oh yeah, he fought this guy named Spider-Man, then you can bring in and have that be your prequel Eddie Brock movie with the origin of how Venom got to Earth. Then you can do that, and then for if you make a third or a fourth Venom movie, you can do Eddie Brock, and the Lethal Protector or Flash Thompson again. You can do whatever it is you want to do at that point, But what I'm essentially saying is save it for a later date. Since you can't do it now, hold off on it, and then do it later once you have the Spider-Man character, and then you can do all that. But I think that would have worked out a little bit better. But that would piss off a lot of people like myself, who are comic book fans, who would look at it and be like, "Yo, you're making a Venom movie and it's not even Eddie Brock?" Yeah, that would piss us off. But the average moviegoer and the people who are watching this movie, they're not going to care, because they're not going to give a shit. They don't know the character. And that's like probably 80% of the fucking audience that's going to see the movie. So you're making the movie for them. Like they tried to do with this movie, because they didn't make this movie for comic book fans. They changed up all the shit and it don't even got fucking Spider-Man in it. So it's like you're making the movie for the mainstream. So I think that would have worked better for them, because then you can explain who Venom is. You got Venom, Flash Thompson. You can explain what Venom could do, shapeshift, all that kind of sort of stuff, right? And which they didn't even do none in this movie. Venom, can also turn invisible and take the textures of what's around him. Didn't do that either in this movie. You can play on the different powers and can kind of show the powers with Flash Thompson's movie, and then go back in Eddie Brock's movie and do like web slinging, super strength, and lifting cars, and all that Spider-Man shit that you can't really show because you don't got Spider-Man, right? Have him fight Spider-Man. You can have them both do the maximum Carnage thing if that's what you want to do. Bring in Woody Harrelson as Carnage like they tried to do at the end of this bullshit, and have a maximum Carnage be a movie by itself. Have that lead into Flash Thompson's origin movie. Have, let's say, like, Maximum Carnage happen, Spider-Man and Venom, as Eddie Brock has to go beat up Carnage. They fight Carnage, they stop him, but at the end, Venom gets fucked up, or Eddie Brock gets killed, or something. And then that's when the government scoops in and takes Venom. And then they're like, oh, we can save this for a later date once we figure things out. And then, bam, that leads back into that first movie. I think that'd have been a hell of a lot better, because then you've established the alien costume, you've established Eddie Brock, Venom, Flash Thompson, and all of that stuff, right? But with the movie that they put out with, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I wish they'd have took their time with it. This movie felt rushed. The dialogue was shit. Like, this movie should have had better writing. I wish the movie was more menacing. I wish Venom was a menacing character. I wish the movie would have had a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing. I wish this movie had character arcs that would explain. I wish Eddie Brock was an asshole at the beginning of the movie, because then have him be an asshole, and then by the end of the movie have him transition to be a likable anti-hero. In this, he isn't even an anti-hero. He's a damn hero. I mean, if you want to be technical about it, I mean, there's nothing anti about him. This movie has a lot of missing pieces, and I don't know if that's because maybe they had to get the runtime down and they chopped this shit up like Justice League. So maybe it's like, okay, well, maybe this movie was a bigger movie and they cut out all the parts that made everything fit together. Cause that's what it feel like. Like, I feel like this movie's gonna have a Snyder cut that explains a lot of the character flaws and plot holes and story arcs that this movie does not have. Because this movie doesn't have none of that. This movie, it's they established the characters and it's like, that's about it. And then it's just, okay, we're following Eddie as he does stuff. And then it gets to the end of the movie and it's like, oh, we need to stop this bad guy from doing this. Okay, let's go do that. Why? Because, I don't know, because I like you. Like, what? And it's like, it wants you, by the end of the movie, it wants you to believe that Eddie Brock and Venom are like, yo, that's my boy right there. But like, none of it was earned. Like, that's why I think if there is a Snyder cut, they cut out a lot of good stuff. I think I seen an interview with Tom Hardy where he said it was like, 30-40 minutes was cut out. So maybe that's a lot of the character building that Venom and Eddie Brock had towards each other, to get Venom to change its mind and not eat him and eat other people, towards the end of the movie. But like, by them cutting it out, it just didn't make sense. When Venom told Eddie Brock, it was like, oh, it's like, I don't want to kill people no more, or I don't want to destroy the earth. I want to let's go save it. I'm like, what? I was like, what the fuck? Made no fucking sense. Because like 2 or 3 scenes ago, you just said that you was gonna eat him, and you were threatening him into, eating everybody else. You was like, oh yeah, do what we say and we won't eat you. So it's like, what the fuck? Nothing feels earned in this shit. It really doesn't. And then you get to the end of the movie and you got Eddie Brock sitting down with his ex-fiance, and they talking about like Venom and the whole situation, about how like, I'm sorry about Venom. Like, no, bitch. Like, this scene is not earned in any way, shape, or form. Like I think at the end scene, you had like Eddie Brock as Venom fall into like the ocean or something, and then Venom like became like a parachute, and so he wouldn't die in the fall, I guess. And then he burned up, so you had Eddie Brock screaming like, "No, Venom!" I was like, "What the fuck, though? This shit is not earned." What are you screaming his name for? Y'all aren't friends. It's just, I don't know, YouTube. I don't know. It's just, this movie would have been so much better if they'd just planned it out better. Because like I said, you can make, I think it's It's shitty to do because I think it's fucked up. But if they wanted to make a Venom movie without Spider-Man, they could make that work. They really could. But honestly, with what they did, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not, like I said, it's not consistent. It's scene to scene, it's not consistent. This movie feels incredibly chopped up. Like there has to be a Snyder cut or something out there, because from what I heard, it's like they wanted to get rated R, and then at the last minute they changed it to PG-13. And when you're watching the movie, it's like certain things happen that just cut away. Like Venom will bite somebody's head off, the camera will cut, and then it's like there's no blood, no body, no nothing left behind them. Like the one scene in the convenience store where he's like, "Oh, I got a parasite." That scene, he bit the guy, he bite the guy's head off, says that line, and then walks out. And then he behind him, when you're looking at the floor, there's like no dead body, no blood, nothing. It's like it. I mean, obviously because it didn't happen because it's a damn movie, the shit ain't real. But it's like there's no internal consistency from scene to scene. Like people got on shitty wigs. I just left the movie when the credits hit, so I didn't even see the Woody Harrelson scene because it's like I could care less at that point. But I heard he had a shitty wig on. Eddie Brock's ex-fiance had a shitty wig on halfway throughout the movie. It's just like, this is a multi-million-dollar movie. Like, this is like, it's like it has the polish of a AAA, but the functions of like a B-rate, C-rate movie. It's like, it's just bad all the way around. Like, if your movie is costing you millions to make and you have all this A-list talent, your movie shouldn't be as shitty as this. You know? But like I said, I did not enjoy this movie. So I knew when I had to make this video, I knew I was going to go in and make like a 45-minute video talking about this shit. Because like I said, I'm a huge Venom fan, and it makes me upset that it didn't work. And I hope this movie flops horribly, honestly. I hope Sony goes bankrupt off of this fucking movie. Well, maybe not too bankrupt, because I still love my PlayStation. But I hope this movie goes bankrupt enough to where they gotta sell Spider-Man back to Marvel. Or back to Marvel and Disney. So they can actually do it right, and we can get good, better characters than Sony's able to do. Because Sony don't know what the fuck they doing, obviously. But if this movie's gonna do good, I mean, they're gonna do Carnage in the next movie. They'll probably fuck him up too. I think Woody Harrelson, I know he can kill a role sometimes, but I gotta see how his Cletus Cassidy is. I'm not sure if he can actually do that just right. And it damn sure can't be PG-13 if you're doing Carnage, so that's not gonna work. So I'm hoping this movie flops, because I don't want to see Carnage and them try to do Carnage, because that wouldn't work. If they did a Carnage movie with Carnage fought Venom, Carnage would beat the fuck out of Venom, and that would be the end of the movie. But since most people who don't read comic books don't know that, that's why whenever you see Venom fight Spider-Man in the comic books, or fight Carnage in the comic books, he always has Spider-Man with him. That's why he had to team up with him to beat him, because he can't do it on his own. Every spawn of the symbiote, every other, or symbiote, every type of, anytime they have children, essentially Carnage is Venom's son. So Carnage, and anytime their lineage, they get double the strength. So like, Carnage is twice as strong as Venom. Carnage's spawn, Toxin, is twice as strong as Venom and Carnage. So that's why, he needs Spider-Man to be able to, to beat him and things like that. So I don't think you can really do that by himself, unless you just say, oh, here's a whole nother symbiote, and then Venom has to beat it, but then you just had that with Riot in this movie, so what's the difference? See what I'm saying? So that's why I think it's going to be shit. You have to have a third element in there to break up the dichotomy, otherwise you're just making the same movie without the origin. But anyways, guys, if you guys seen the movie, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Maybe we can, talk about how badly or how bad this movie is, or about how shitty this movie is. Or if you're somebody who liked it, let me know why you liked it. And if you're a fan of the character, why did you like the movie? And seeing how they changed the character for the movie, what makes you overlook all the shitty changes that they made to like this movie, if you're a fan of the actual character. So my name is Denanu, and I'm the man with the biggest and the most blackest privilege on YouTube. and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.